Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks.
This is Emily Hicks, and you're listening to the Elder Law Hour, where we're offering insights and solutions for today's seniors so you can age with confidence. And thank you so much for joining us today. I am here with Brittany Darling, and we're going to start off the show today by talking about a celebrity that has recently gone through a health crisis, right, Brittany?
Yep.
Okay, so we are talking about the man, Bruce Willis, that we all know and love. And I think a lot of people were really shocked to hear that he has been diagnosed with dementia. I mean, this is the man from Die Hard. Like, you don't even, you would never picture this to be happening to him. He's like a superhero, right?
That's right.
Oh, so sad. So what's really great about his story, though, is how much his family has really come out to talk about this, because you don't really hear the inside scoop of what the family goes through when they're caregiving for someone who has dementia, right?
So initially they diagnosed him with aphasia, and that is more of like a communication disease.
Okay.
And later, about a year later, they had another official diagnosis of frontotemporal dementia.
Okay.
So, and they describe this type of dementia affecting more behavioral and communication versus memory loss. So it must be frustrating to have, to know what you want to say, but not be able to say it.
Oh, yeah.
And you're right, Emily. The family has really rallied around him and, been very vocal on social media and other media outlets, and really trying to raise awareness about the disease and really just what their family is struggling with on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis.
Yeah, I saw recently that his wife is going to publish a book coming out, I think, next year about caregiving someone with dementia. So I think that was a news story that recently came out, that she has really found support groups and other caregivers to be extremely helpful with the situation of what they're going through. It's really sad when someone you love, I mean, essentially, they change a whole lot when they lose capacity. And especially, in his situation, not being able to communicate, I think that would be especially difficult to deal with. Knowing, like you said, knowing what you want to say, but not really having the ability to say it. Your relationships change, and your whole life. I mean, the whole family just kind of goes upside down. He's got a lot of kids, right? He's got what, 3 daughters with Demi Moore?
Yeah. So he's got 3 adult daughters with Demi Moore. Romer is 35, Scout's 32, and Tallulah is 28. And he's got one granddaughter. Romer has a sweet little baby. She'll be 1 in, I believe it's April. And her name is Luetta. How sweet is that?
That's cute. Yeah.
So he's got 3 adult daughters with Demi Moore, and he's got 2 smaller girls that are 11 and 9 with Emma Hemming. So Mabel is 11 and Evelyn is 9.
Gotcha.
And, by all accounts, Demi Moore and Emma have really both been on board with caring for Bruce Willis. All the stories that have come out have been that they're really working together to really take care of him. And, that's so common. There's so many blended families now. And to see someone in the spotlight like that is kind of the picture of what a blended family can look like when there is a diagnosis of dementia, that really caring for the person is really the most important thing.
Absolutely. I see her a lot I don't follow her or anything, but it pops up on my socials sometimes with pictures of her. I think they live quite closely, quite close together. And she seems to be, Demi Moore is who I'm talking about. She seems to be a big part of this. And when you share children with someone, and a grandchild now, you're bonded to that person forever. Sometimes whether you like it or not. But
that's correct.
For them, I mean, I love that she is doing that, and that they're really taking a wonderful approach of what's best for him and what's best for the entire family. And I'm sure that he's well counseled as far as planning for all of the things that could possibly happen with this diagnosis. It's going to be a tough road for everyone from here on
Yeah.
out. So I'm sure that I'm hoping that he's already done as much planning as he can as far as his estate is concerned, but also just as far as his life care plan is concerned. I'm hoping that he was able to, I don't know how his capacity is at this point, but I know it's quite difficult if he can't really communicate, but I'm hoping
Right.
I hope that they're a little further along on their journey with life care and estate planning than most
Yeah.
people in his position.
Well, and to give you an idea, the Today Show put out a great article, and we'll link it in our show notes for you guys if you want to read more about his diagnosis and the family and just more information about the disease. But the prognosis is anywhere from 7 to 13 years. So as we get into maybe some planning tools that the family can use, they're kind of thinking of this timeline in the future. So
Sure.
they say 10 years or longer is a great prognosis, but it's really in that 7 to 10, maybe up to 13 years that he's
Okay.
got.
Yeah. Well, that's a long time. I mean,
Mhm.
in one respect, it's a very short amount of time, in another. I think he's what, 68, something like that.
68, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gosh, he's 68 and he has young kids. It's like, so,
Right,
oh
right.
man. Um, but anyway, yeah, I'm sure that, like I said, I'm sure that they've, got some plans in place and they seem to be doing a great job so far. But one of the things that I ask usually is, do you have a power of attorney?
Yes, those are
That's
so
really
important.
like the first question. And when I hear of a diminished capacity diagnosis is the power of attorney. Do you have one already? And let me
Right.
see it. What does it say? Yeah. But
So when you say, "Let me see it," are you determining what type of power of attorney they have in place, and then you would make recommendations from there?
yes. So I want to make sure that it has everything that we might need. Not all, I say this a lot to people, not all powers of attorney are created equal. I see these all the time, and I see a lot of documents that are completely insufficient to do the type of planning that we need to do in these
Yeah.
types of situations because we
Yeah.
have to anticipate a whole lot of things, a whole lot of different dynamics, a whole lot of different scenarios that we may need to do with funds, with real estate, with retirement accounts, with bank accounts. Government assistance planning is a really big part of it. And so many powers of attorney do not have that provision in there. So, yeah, they're not all created equal. And there are different types because I think that's also a question that I got recently from a client is she presented a specific power of attorney. She said, this is what we need. We need this specific power of attorney and then the healthcare stuff. And I said, well, a specific power of attorney isn't generally what we would use in this type of situation with estate planning. A specific power of attorney is most likely used in like a transaction. So picture closing on a house. That's a really, really common use of a specific power of attorney. You're closing on a house and you give someone the power to sign the closing documents for you. That's just for that specific transaction. That's what a specific power of attorney is usually about. It's not going to give you any authority over a certain event or transaction that you want to grant someone, or maybe a specific time period or something like that. So that's not really what we're looking at in this situation. We're looking at more of a general power of attorney, but also a durable power of attorney. Um,
Okay.
because in Florida, the laws changed and we no longer have what's called springing powers. And springing powers are something that it's language that you would put in a power of attorney saying, hey, I want this person to be my agent or my attorney in fact, but I don't want them to have any power until this happens, until I'm incapacitated. So the power kind of springs like when that event occurs. We don't do that in Florida anymore. So, that a springing power of attorney is just, it's not something that we can do here. So usually what I create is a durable power of attorney. It's a general power of attorney. It's going to have a whole lot of stuff in there. It's going to, like I said, we're going to try to anticipate as many types of situations that we can for that person and the rest of the remainder of their life. Because another thing too, and I also had this question this week with someone trying to use a power of attorney after the person was deceased. Well, it's no longer valid. So a power of attorney is really just for your life and for incapacity. Once you pass on, that's when the estate documents take over, so to speak.
Okay. Well, let's move into talking about us representing someone that has been diagnosed with dementia. What are some of those representation do's and do nots when representing a client?
So a lot of people, attorneys included, okay, think that once someone has been diagnosed with dementia, that it's game over. You can't represent them. We're done. And that's not actually true, because everyone knows with dementia, there's good days and there's bad days. So we actually have a duty as attorneys to assume that the person has capacity. And there's a little test that we can run and things like that. So just so you know out there, if you have a loved one with dementia, or if you yourself are, have had a diagnosis, it's not too late to plan. We just have to make sure that we have capacity in the moment and that the person actually knows what they're signing. So we can still do it.
That's
in most circumstances. Yeah. Thank you so much, Brittany. I think that's been really helpful. We have a great show coming up. Jennifer Hill from Home Instead is going to join us and talk about families' options for care after being discharged from the hospital. And first, we actually have Josh Shilts, and he's going to be talking about fraud among seniors and what types of fraud that you all need to look out for. So stick around. We will be right back.
Are you approaching retirement or entering a new chapter of life? Now is the time to consider critical decisions that impact your future and the well-being of your loved ones. As you navigate this transition, ensure you've secured your legacy through proper estate planning. Don't fall into the common misconception that you and your spouse can make decisions for each other in times of legal incapacity without a plan in place. Without proper estate planning, you risk a probate judge making decisions for you, which can be costly and cumbersome for your spouse. Protect your assets and ensure they align with your unique circumstances and objectives. Avoid the default state laws that may not reflect your wishes and could lead to unintended consequences, such as disinheriting your spouse or forcing them to litigate your estate. You also may be considering the possibility of a new relationship after the loss of a spouse. It's essential to enter these relationships with clarity, safeguarding your assets and preserving existing family ties. A premarital agreement becomes crucial in these situations, providing legal protection and clarity. When it comes to your children, thoughtful estate planning is key. Protect their inheritance from squandering, divorces, lawsuits, and bankruptcies. Your hard-earned wealth should be a source of security, not vulnerability. Additionally, plan for long-term care, a significant consideration as you enter retirement. Secure a long-term care insurance policy while you still qualify, and explore alternatives that can convert into life insurance if not needed. Statistics show a 70% likelihood of requiring long-term care after the age of 65, making proactive planning essential. Our team can guide you through this process, helping you replace impersonal state-written plans with a tailored approach that safeguards your assets and family. Don't overlook estate planning as you approach retirement. Book a call with us today to secure your future with confidence. Visit emilyhickslaw.com and book a call today. We'd love to help.
Welcome back to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks. And if you're just tuning in, just to kind of give you guys a refresher, I'm Emily Hicks, and I'm an estate planning and elder law attorney here in the Jacksonville area. And today I have a very special guest with me. She is Jennifer Hill with Home Instead. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Hi, Emily. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I am really looking forward to talking to you today about home health. Well, I should call it home care, right? Because there,
Correct.
I'm getting my terms mixed up. So there's a difference when you say home care and home health, right?
Yes, there is a big difference, and that is actually one of the most common stumbling blocks, for lack of a better term. So most people do not realize that home health is given by a referral from your doctor, where you have a physical therapist, occupational therapy, a skilled care that will come to the house and provide that for you. Home care is private pay. We do take long-term care insurance. We also take VA benefits. That is more driven by the family on how that care arrives, what time they come, and they overlap. It is very common to have home health and home care in the home at the same time. You can also have hospice and home care in the home at the same time. And most people are unaware of that. If you are in the hospital and you are discharged, oftentimes they will discharge you with home health coming to the house. The challenge comes when you're at home and the home health is only there for an hour, but mom needs more care than just an hour. That home health person is there to do a specific skill. They are not there to help get a meal on the table or to help mom get dressed, help mom walk. They're there to do their skill and then they leave.
Right. Very important distinction, right? So tell us a little bit about Home Instead. You have been with Home Instead for quite a while, right?
I have been with Home Instead 17 years, and our goal is to help seniors remain in their homes, wherever they call home. Oftentimes, if there is a change in their lifestyle, it could be that their spouse passed away. It could be that they're simply getting older and can't do the day-to-day things that we take for granted. We woke up, we took a shower, we got dressed, we brushed our teeth, all those things that become more difficult. We have home health aides that come in and assist them to help them do those things and keep their independence by having a caregiver in the home.
Yeah, which everyone wants to age in place, right? Nobody wants to leave their home for the most part. So how does the process work for you guys? Because I'm going to throw this out there. I have a scenario for you. And this is a really common occurrence that I see in my practice is it usually starts out with a fall. And I'm going to use my mother-in-law who recently had a fall, which she would probably hate me doing this, but so she fell and it was a very bad fall. She hit her head, the back of her head really hard. It was actually they ended up life flighting her to,
Wow.
to Shands in Gainesville. She doesn't live here in Jacksonville.
Okay.
So she had a brain bleed and it was very touchy for a while, but she recovered. And then when she got out of the hospital, she went into a rehab hospital.
Okay.
So the question, she is now at home, however, not doing really that great. So really at the point where she was in the rehab hospital, okay, and we're looking at our options, she just wants to go home. So Jennifer, in your experience, what are our options at that point? Let's pretend that I'm a potential client. What are my options for her, leaving the rehab hospital? Because this is a really common scenario for people that you really have to make that decision at that point.
Sure.
Where are they going to go?
Sure. Oftentimes, if somebody is coming home from a rehab, we like to lean more on 24/7 care, at least for the first couple of days, maybe 3 or 4 days, because we're looking for a pattern to see what are best practices in terms of a caregiver. Do they sleep through the night? Are they getting up a lot? Are they able to get up on their own at all? And we identify specific needs. Oftentimes, we will refer back to the caseworker to see the care plan of what they suggested in terms of care needs. And then we will come in and do an assessment with the family to see what care plan should be written out. What are the specific ADLs, activities of daily living, which are help with ambulation, getting dressed, if they have a walk, or what specific assistance do they need? Once we have a care plan established, it could be that they only need 24/7 care for the first 4 days or a week, and then maybe we can wean back on that. Maybe that client specifically needs overnight care because getting up in the night is a more of a fall risk for them. It's really specific to the person. It's very important when somebody is in a rehab that they are taking due diligence with that caseworker, and the caseworker oftentimes will give referrals to them, but they also need to realize that it is their choice who they utilize for home care or for home health. So they want to do that while they're still in their rehab, because once they're discharged, it is very overwhelming, as you know, to have mom home and realize, oh my goodness, mom needed a hospital bed, or mom needs a walker, or mom needs, because now your focus is on caring for your mom. But if you don't have all the tools in place, you're backing up to do that and still providing care. So when a family calls us, we are able to help them with that. We have the references from relationships of who can help them to best get those things in place and work with them. It could be working with their medical provider to get a hospital bed in place and those types of things, because sometimes you do realize that you're home and you weren't really ready. So we can come in and help with those things.
Yeah, and the hospital bed, just for those who are listening, don't wait on that, because
No.
hospital bed is the best thing that can happen to you in a lot of situations, because it makes life so much easier when you cannot get in and out of a regular bed, or perhaps sleep, you know, in a regular bed or on a couch anymore. It sounds like you guys kind of quarterback it a little bit for people. You see what's going on, assess the situation, work with the family to create a plan that works for them,
Sure.
right?
We do. I look at myself more as an educator of, you're in this situation. It's new to you. It's not new to us, because this is what we do. So we look at the overall picture and what is best suited for the individual, and then make those connections for them. These are relationships that we've had. Like I said, I've been there for 17 years. We have a seasoned staff that have the relationships and connections to help them, to get them on track. And that makes it easier for our caregivers as well. We don't want a caregiver in a situation where the home is not as safe as possible for caring for that individual. So we do all those steps with them to help them to get everything in place for them.
Yeah, that sounds great, because the whole process of all of it is so overwhelming. I mean, there's so many decisions that have to be made, and you don't know what you don't know until you've been
Sure.
through it.
It's emotional as well. We never want to overlook that element for, I went through this with my own grandmother. And while this is what I do, when it's your person, there's a whole different layer of it that makes it different for you to
Sure.
accept and deal with. So we like to walk families through and help them and give them the support that they need. That's the most important thing. And connect them with people. If someone has dementia, if somebody needs a walker, we can get them with the COA and show them how to do those steps. And these are things that they seem little to us, but they're monumental for them, because they really just don't know what's out there to help them.
Absolutely. And there's so many resources out there, and it's impossible to know when you just haven't been through it. So absolutely. And speaking of dementia, you are a certified dementia practitioner, correct?
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
tell me what that is and what that means?
Sure. So I have worked with families that are dealing with loved ones that have dementia since I've been with Home Instead. Recently, I did get the certified dementia practitioner. It's basically extended education that helps you to understand deeper ways to provide support, more detailed ways to look at the overall picture and what they're dealing with, and provide support groups. We have a lot of support groups within St. Johns County to help families that have been just monumental. You can see the change in their disposition when you're talking with them. Little tips about dealing with someone that has dementia on how to talk with them. If they see a shadow on the floor, they may trip and fall because they can't see that like we can. Little things like that you learn throughout the course that are just kind of aha moments that we don't realize. We also offer the virtual dementia tour for communities or for businesses that will give you the opportunity to see what it's like to have dementia.
Oh,
When you do the
wow, that's
tour,
really
yeah, it takes
interesting.
5 to 7 minutes per person, and it really is eye-opening, because
Oh my
when they come
gosh.
out realizing, wow, this is what my loved one is going through. So
I would actually love to do that,
yeah,
just to understand it a little bit more.
sure.
Because you don't know what they're seeing, you don't.
You really don't know.
Yeah. So, wow, that's a really great idea. So with families that have a loved one with dementia, there's so many different levels to it, right? When is it time really for mom to, when is it no longer time to be at home, I guess is what I'm asking.
It really depends on the family and the situation. If you are an individual who can afford 24/7 care within the home, that is certainly an option. We do have clients that do have their loved one that have dementia and they are at home. It depends on how often you were able to be with them. Oftentimes, I will say in one of my networking groups that in the United States, people miss more work caring for their parents than they do their children. Because
Right.
if your child gets sick, you're looking at a few days. If your mom or dad gets sick, you could potentially looking at a life-changing event for you. You may have to give up your job. You may have to go part-time because now mom can't be by herself. So
Yeah.
when it comes to dementia, it usually starts small, and then you realize, okay, mom can't drive anymore. So now you have a new layer to it. Okay, now mom, I don't feel comfortable leaving her alone. So some clients will have care 8 hours a day, some 12, some 24/7. It depends on their resources. If they have long-term care insurance policies, that will help. It depends on their safety. Some people that have dementia will want to wander outside. And then you have, a new element too. So it's really a case by case basis. There's no black or white rule that says your person has full blown Alzheimer's, you have to go to a memory care unit. That's not really all the way true. Is it ideal in some situations? Yes, because they can't be by themselves at all. And then you have the financial piece of it. So, and when we do an inquiry from a family, that's where we look at the big picture to see what is the best fit for this family. It's not just about the hours of care that they need, but it also comes into the financial picture. And that's where we have our referral partners that we work with that we can refer them to say, these resources are available, or maybe this community is a good fit for you, and work together. I think I had mentioned I'm an educator. I want families to know their options and to get them to the right fit and what that looks like. Another misconception that people don't think about is just because you've moved your loved one to a memory care or an assisted living doesn't mean that you've checked the box and you're done. It's
Right.
very common that you move that person and now that community is calling and saying to you, you need home instead in that community also, because the care has become more extensive than what we allow at that particular level of care. And one thing, especially when it comes to memory care, if a family is starting out in assisted living, say that person advances, the next thing you know, they have a memory impairment. If that community does not offer memory care, now you've moved them twice. So you really want to do your homework before you make a big decision like that, because the worst thing to do is to have to keep moving someone who is an elderly person, because it's traumatic to move. It's hard to move from high school to a college. So you don't want to, moving is hard no matter what your age is. So you want to make sure that you're making a decision that's a good fit, not just for the individual, but for the family as well, because it affects so many people.
Absolutely, because location is one of the big factors, right? I mean, with everybody kind of spread across the country nowadays, and I'm 2.5 hours. I'm not very far, but still 2.5 hours is not something I can do on a daily basis, what I mean?
Sure.
But yeah, families, they move all over the country. Yeah, I can see how, a family like that could really use your guys' help, because so many of us are not right next door to mom and dad anymore. I know we talked a little bit about all of the services that you guys provide, but let's talk a little bit about, the course, like the continuum of care, because,
Sure.
as someone kind of goes through these different stages, what does that look like?
So usually when somebody calls, they're calling because they already have a need. Very rarely does someone call just because they're doing research. They've already identified a need, and it might be, my mom doesn't drive anymore. I can't take her to all these appointments. Or you see their blood pressure's gone up because they're microwaving all their meals. They can no longer do meal prep. When they call, we talk with them to try to uncover things that they might not think about. And our care is not limited to just meal prep or just med reminders. It could be that they need grocery shopping, that they need the hands-on care. Oftentimes people think, oh my goodness, there's 4 hours for a shift, and that's too long. And it's not too long. We want a relationship. We don't want the caregivers to go in and just check a box and say, well, I've done this and now I'm done for the day. We want a relationship with that client and that caregiver. So when we go in, we try to identify what is the best fit for that family in terms of what their needs are, and try to make sure that we can help the client see that it's more their idea down the road. So we don't want to start too big to where it's overwhelming for them. But if you have a situation where they've just come home from a rehab, they very well may need 12 hours a day of care. So it's just a matter of being creative and making sure that the client doesn't feel too overwhelmed, but the daughter and the son feel supported, because sometimes I think the care is more for the son and daughter for their peace of mind. You realize the client might be okay. And so you have to look at the overall picture, and that's what we try to do when we're in the home or on the phone. We're never trying to talk them into something as much as we are trying to make them see the value of what they don't know. And oftentimes they don't know what they don't know. So it's very important that they understand the reasons behind. Oftentimes families will call when they only want, I just want a caregiver to show up for an hour. An hour goes by very quickly. You can't really build a relationship. So we really try to cultivate some type of relationship between that caregiver and that client, so that that client feels comfortable and that client feels supported and cared for, and there's something for them to talk about, rather than I'm just here to get you a shower and then I'm heading out. So
Exactly.
it's important. The relationship is very important to us and to the families with those caregivers.
Oh, I can imagine. So how is the updates and progress? I don't know what
Sure.
progress reports or whatever. How do you guys communicate that with the family?
Sure. So we put together a care plan when we first go into the home. Care plan is initiated, and then we visit with that client in person. We have a client care coordinator that goes and visits that client at least once a month as well. Our caregivers are the eyes and the ears. So they may call and say, oh, Mrs. Jones currently just has 2 things on her care plan, but I've noticed that she does need help getting dressed now. So we'll go in and we will update that. We also have a family room, which is accessible to families to go online and see exactly what happened in the home, to see, what their mom or dad did not allow, what they did allow, what actually happened in the home. So that makes it easy as well. And our client care coordinator also communicates with the sons or daughters or whoever the POA is, to let them know how they're doing. If they have questions, they can easily communicate. As you know, oftentimes what the client tells us is happening in the reality might not always be true. So we try to make sure the sons and the daughter have a true picture that, we've seen a decline, or we think mom needs to go to the doctor, because they don't live here, most of them. So we try to keep a very close eye on what their needs are.
And that's so important too, to identify what medical issues might be coming up, like what, is happening with them medically. But I love what you said too about establishing and maintaining that relationship with the caregivers, because I really feel like on a human level, we all need that. And, when you're at home and your children maybe they're not around, it's so isolating. And I think, the depression can set in, and I feel like and I know there's a lot of studies that, I've mentioned on the show previously, about this, is it affects people in such a huge way, negative.
It really does.
Yeah.
And clients that have like a husband and wife situation where they're together all the time, when you have a caregiver come in, and maybe they're coming in and they're caring for the husband, oftentimes if the wife would just get out of the house for a little while, when she comes back, if that caregiver's been with him for 4 hours, it's given them something new to talk about. He
Yeah.
has something new to add to the conversation. So it gives them just that freedom of, I did something today. And maybe he has a little bit of a dementia and he doesn't go anywhere, or that's not comfortable for him. But even if you have a new person with him, it's adding something new to their day. And you see a big change in their wellness and their disposition when they have that interaction with people. People often make the assumption, well, they don't remember. They remember differently than we do. And it is important for them to have that human interaction with somebody, even if they're just walking around the block with them or sitting and watching a program. It makes a big difference for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a basic need, right, of all of us
Yeah.
to be with other people. So I love the work that you guys do. I think it's so hugely important. I want to thank you for being on the show with us today. And Jennifer, if someone is in need of your services, how should they get in touch with you?
Sure. They are more than welcome to call my cell phone directly. The area code is 904-806-8588. And again, that's 904-806-8588. Jennifer Hill with Home Instead.
And thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much.
All right, you've been listening to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks. We'll be right back.
This is Vicki Oakes, your St. Johns County Supervisor of Elections. The 2024 elections are coming. They will be here soon. Are you election ready? If not, and you need to be, you can visit our website at votesjc.gov. That's votesjc.gov, or contact our office at 904-823-2238. Make sure you are election ready.
I'm Emily Hicks, and you're listening to the Elder Law Hour, where we're offering insights and solutions for today's seniors so you can age with confidence. Today, I have an exciting topic to discuss that could greatly benefit those with aging parents who are aging in place at home. Now, we all know that managing the health and well-being of aging parents can be a challenge, especially when it comes to communication between the family members. But fear not, because there is an app for that now. So there's a new app that might just be the solution that you're looking for, because according to recent studies, over 75% of adults want to continue living in their home as they grow older. However, there's often been a significant gap in communication and information sharing between family members, and that can lead to a lot of important details getting lost in the shuffle. So recognizing this issue, an assistant professor, Tina Satarangani from NYU College of Nursing, saw an opportunity to bridge the gap using technology. After years of research and development, the professor has created a groundbreaking new smartphone app, and it's called CareMobi. This is a free app, and it aims to connect caregivers and healthcare providers. Now, it allows users to log essential information such as medication details, vital signs, appointments, meals, sleep patterns, and more, and that can be shared with their care team. The professor explains, keeping better track of day-to-day health information can help us nip emerging problems in the bud. Our goal is to help keep people out of hospitals and emergency rooms by improving communication and supporting caregivers as effective advocates through data and shared clinical decision-making. So, what exactly is CareMobi? Well, it's a practical and user-friendly smartphone app that's designed to connect the caregivers at home with perhaps the adult daycare program staff or the medical providers. The app's primary objective is to get everyone on the same team so that they can work together seamlessly. It's available for free to anyone who wishes to use it. And one of the app's key benefits is that it allows users to log in all of the recent health information like blood pressure or pain levels and eating habits. And then that data can easily be accessed during a medical visit, perhaps, or to provide a comprehensive overview of the individual's health. Now, this is going to share real-time information with the entire care team. And by tracking this, everyone involved can identify changes and trends and potentially spot any issues before they escalate. So currently, CareMobi is in its beta version, and it's available to all users for free. However, the creators are also conducting a study on its use in adult daycare centers, and that's serving as the primary source of their research. So if you have aging parents who are aging in place at home, the Care Mobile app may be a good solution for you. I think this is a great tool, and I'm going to start recommending it to anyone who is a caregiver at home. I've actually downloaded the app and I've taken a look at what all it can do, and it's great. I know firsthand some of the challenges of family caregiving is that you can't keep up with all of the appointments and the medication changes, the doctor's recommendations, new symptoms that are happening, and everything that's going on with your loved one, because you're often sharing these duties with other family members. For instance, sometimes I would take my mother to her doctor's appointment while my sister was doing something else. And so this is a nice way that you can manage all of it from one place and stay up to date and informed, which is also really nice for those family members that live far away, but they still want to be in the loop as to what's going on. So I look forward to seeing how this works out for families, and I hope this is helpful for those of you out there who have aging family members at home. We have a great show for you today. My guest is Josh Shilts, who is a CPA and a forensic accountant, and he's also the president of Shilts CPA. And Josh, like I said, specializes in forensic accounting, and he is an expert in investigating fraud, which is what we're going to talk about today, especially fraud involving elders. There is a rampant amount of elder fraud that is happening now in our communities, and that's what we want to focus on today. So, Josh, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Emily. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm glad somebody wants to listen to me talk about fraud.
This is a great topic. I am really excited about discussing this because there's something like, I don't know how much, billions of dollars that are stolen from seniors every year. It's just absolutely just amazing how much money is being lost with these scams and these fraudsters that are targeting our seniors today. But first, let's start with you. So how did you come into this industry?
Oh, that's a great question. Like anyone in college, I think I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be. Wanted to be a lawyer. Somebody talked me into getting an accounting degree before I went to law school. And
so you dodged that bullet.
I dodged that bullet. I dodged that bullet, but went in, got a master's degree at Florida Atlantic University in forensic accounting, and started really, it was interesting. It was, investigating fraud and then the litigation support aspect. I feel lucky, me and my team, we're not preparing tax returns or, doing audits of financial statements. We are valuing businesses for, transfers or disputes in litigation, assisting business owners or litigants in a plethora of things involving economic damages, forensic investigations, valuations of businesses and tangible assets. So it was lucky to get here. But what initially drew me was the fraud aspect of it. And so, I tell everyone at the heart of this, I'm a fraud auditor.
Right.
And for as long as I've been doing this, which is approximately closing in on 20 years, you brought up a stat, 5% of company revenues are lost annually from fraud. That has been a statistic that has held constant since 2008. I know that. I'm a certified fraud examiner, and I'm a member of the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. So when you talk about the amount of money that companies lose or our economy loses to fraud, it's really eye-opening, right? So that's what initially drew this to me was I think the excitement of investigations and, doing that type of work and seeing how that all came together, when you're thinking about what do I really want to do with my life, that sounded exciting. It is exciting when you are involved in those things as well.
Yeah, I could see that. It would be really interesting to do the investigations, keeping everybody honest, making sure everything is what they say it is, basically, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be an accountant and use those skills, but then I'm trained in interrogation techniques, but knowing how to question and knowing what questions to ask or knowing what to ask for.
All right. You just made me nervous.
Those are fun. Yeah. I mean, those are fun, but after doing this for 20 years, the real deterrent to fraud is education. That's the one thing, because as much as the investigations can be fun, the fact of the matter is what's done is done at that point. That that fraud occurred, that money, that damage is done. And I think what a lot of people, and I know it from practice, Emily, and I'm glad we're talking about this today, is it's very hard to get your money back once it's gone.
Right.
Not like it's not hard to find it, but is it still there? Does it still exist?
I know.
And then in what form? Because
that's
somebody
the
might have went and
difficulty.
spent it on a bunch of who knows what. And, now that cash ain't exactly what you thought it was.
Right. And with real estate transactions, especially, that it's such a big liability these days with the wire fraud, because you'll be getting emails saying, oh, here, wire this to my account, and it'll be from that person. And it's so easy to do. And I've had we've seen a ton of that in the past few years. But once the money is gone, it's gone and it doesn't come back. And that's what people don't understand is it's like evaporated.
And in the world we live in today with electronic transactions and just me taking my phone and holding it up to something and we're transacting, the risk of fraud is just that much more prevalent, right? And
crazy.
That's why you're seeing more and more stories, specifically, for individuals, I think is where I'm seeing that start to hit. And, a part of the reason that we're talking about the elder fraud, and I hate the term elders, right? Because that changes depending on, what year we're in. 1980, an elder is different than 2020 type of elder.
Sure.
But the fact is, I think anyone that's near or at retirement kind of fits into that. And I'll tell you why. You've accumulated a lot of your assets and net worth at that point in time. You become a real target for people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the case. And the downside of that too is when you play into diminished capacity, when unfortunately what we're seeing so much more of with my clients and in the elder quote unquote community are people that are losing that are having cognitive problems and cognitive impairment. And I read that obviously they're much more likely to go for these types of things, but it's not just them, right? I mean, so let's get into what you believe, seniors need to know. We'll call them seniors instead of elders. How about that? What seniors need to know about elder fraud? What types of examples are we seeing out there for the individual?
Yeah, you brought up a good one. The email scams, they're just getting better and better at it. Right. And the ability for fraudsters or outside perpetrators to mask their email, the ability for them to appear as a cousin, friend, family member, and to ask you for a check written somewhere or to ask for a certain piece of information is it's just better than it was. It's something that even me in running my own business, I have to be cognizant of. It's been attempted on me and I go, oh my goodness.
I know.
And let me explain something to everyone. These fraudsters, right, are not looking to wipe you out in one fall swoop. That's not smart. Let's keep the faucet running. So what I explain to people is the damage of fraud is like a dam. When you look at a dam that's built, right, everyone always reads the news stories of Enron or whatever is in there, right? Or the school bookkeeper who stole $2 million. Well, that's a big hole in that dam. But at most frauds, and the Federal Trade Commission just published their top 5 frauds of 2022, and most of them, those were all consumer-related fraud. They all talked about email. Most of them talked about some sort of online information sharing scam. But my point is, if you look at the median loss on those, Emily, it was like 1,000, 500, 700. But now you multiply all those little holes in that dam, and it equated to billions of dollars of economic loss. Right. And that's a smart thing for those fraudsters to do because
absolutely.
The cops, what are you going to do? Call the cops about $500? Okay, they'll get right back to it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And your bank, they get these calls nonstop and for much, much larger amounts. And I think when they start targeting people, you go, oh my God, am I going to spend the next 2 days of my life trying to track down $500? Right? Because obviously $500, you were okay enough to give it up in that transaction. It's obviously not like, obviously there's always the scam of please give me your bank routing number, and everyone hears about the bank accounts being wiped out. But it's not like that. It's committing to a $50 charge, and next thing you know, it's a recurring charge for some donation you think what it is. But it's just a $50 charge that's monthly cash flow. Fraud, it's the business of fraud.
Absolutely. And I actually had a client, we discovered a fraudulent charge that was recurring on her account just recently. And the only reason I think that it came to her attention is because we were trying to get her husband qualified for Medicaid. And it actually was an issue for us because then we had to explain to the Department of Children and Families, hey, this isn't some, thing that he's spending money on. This is actually a fraudster that has somehow gotten their information and has been repeatedly, and it's those little charges, right? I think it was only $30 or $40 a month. So it was flying under the radar. And you don't really notice, something that's
small drips. And back to the ACFE, the median length of a fraud within a business, this is occupational fraud, but I still think it applies to some extent, is 18 months. So these frauds happen for 18 months before they are uncovered. I can tell you from personal experiences in practice, in investigations, that number holds true. And a lot of the times these happens, and I don't know if you or the audience aware, it's something in my world we call poor internal controls, right? And an internal control is just, what's my check and balance in place? And a point I think that all your listeners need to know is, so these frauds have become more exotic. They've gotten better. They're definitely much more technologically oriented. But our internal controls, our toolbox for that, have not necessarily kept up with that. They're still somewhat basic, but they're basic for a purpose, right? You should look at your bank statement every month, whether you're a business owner or you're just a consumer at home. Right. What are these charges? And I can't tell you how many times, Emily, I sit down with somebody who's been impacted by fraud and I go, did you check your bank statements monthly? No. If you would have done that, we would have found this immediately. Okay. Yeah. Here's another thing that I tell people, you don't have to do something electronically. I still have checkbooks. I still prefer paper trails. Mm-hmm. My father, who is about to turn 72, will not commit to credit cards and additional debit cards.
Yes.
And he was always like that. Now, I say this, about a year ago, he was at the bank. They wanted him to do something. Should I open up these other accounts? 10 years ago, he probably would have said no. What I do notice is seniors are looking for people to trust, right?
Right.
And that goes into the other aspect of this is when you look at who is being impacted by this, a lot of the times it's people masking themselves as someone as a person of trust.
Sure.
So always be aware of that. But back to the controls aspect of it is don't sign up for it, right? A lot of the frauds we see are just very common sense. Don't put your credit card information out there. If you start setting up different credit card accounts and doing these online, you're just putting your information more and more out there. I just tell people nowadays, I think you need to be just much, much more astute of your own finances. Now, Emily, when you get into situations like I'm sure you see where cognitive decline and people are looking for trust,
yes,
that's a major hole, right? I mean, that's where hopefully family members are in an ability to recognize those types of things. So if there's family members listening and you're starting to see some of these things, it's time for you to take an active role, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where, it's really key to have someone looking out for you if you can't look out for yourself anymore. And the reality is you have to be on the lookout for these so-called family friends that come into play. And they come in at a usually pretty opportune moment when there is a little bit of decline cognitively. There is some vulnerability, I guess we should say. And that person comes in and now all of a sudden, oh, I want Josh to be my power of attorney instead of my two daughters and things like that. So as attorneys, I mean, we certainly are on the lookout for that constantly. I mean, you really have to understand the family dynamic and understand what's going on. Unfortunately, a lot of times the family members cannot be the most trusted. I did read.
I've seen that.
Yeah, I read the other day that most of the fraud, and I know we're talking about online and stuff like that, but a lot of times what is happening is actually a result of the family member taking monies from the seniors. So,
and I see a lot more of that, and those are the big numbers. So for your audience, I'm a student of fraud, and there was actually a professor at BYU, Dr. Joseph Wells, and the ACFE, you can go online and they have tons of resources for this, but Dr. Wells worked with, it was born out of the FBI. When they started to look at white collar fraud, there was some things that they had found in those investigations called the fraud triangle. And they found that in these types of situations, there's usually three things prevalent. Number one is the fraudster has some sort of pressure necessarily involved. This is what's making them do that, right? Financial pressure, gambling, addiction, behavioral issues. Not all pressures are bad. I investigated one that was a $2.5 million fraud, and the woman stole it to pay for a surgery for a family member.
Oh, wow.
So pressures.
Yeah.
When I hear about the economy, I know what's happening out there right now. Okay.
Yeah.
The other aspect is rationalization. And you know, Emily, you hit on that, especially with family members. It becomes a very real thing when one sibling has control and, well, I'm here, so that extra 100 or that extra whatever, that's due to me. And you probably have tons of stories you can talk about that, but there's a rationalization aspect of it. And
there is.
Those all make sense after the fact. But then there's the third leg to that stool, and I think that's the most important leg. And in every fraud, there's an opportunity to commit, right? So in a business, you either left the door open to the warehouse or whatever. And so fraudsters look for that opportunity, is my point. And you need to be aware of where your vulnerabilities exist. We talked about that, about the online, but I definitely think you're bringing up some good points about internally, right? Like, is the nice woman or is this nice gentleman who's helping so-and-so really looking out for their best interests?
Right.
Those cases can come up from time to time. And listen, most of the time you're not hiring somebody like me. It's not pennies on the dollar for recovery in these types of instances. So that's where education is so important.
This has been really, really educational and really, really helpful. Josh, I appreciate you being here so, so much. And if there's anything else you want to add, just let me know. If someone is a business owner, because you primarily work with business owners, correct? If they would like to get
individuals, we work with individuals, corporations, attorneys.
Gotcha.
You can reach out to us at shiltscpa.com. We service clients throughout the country. Unfortunately, that's where the problems are. I would say this: if you've been impacted by fraud, I would first and foremost figure out how it happened and cut it off immediately. Second is call the cops, call the bank, report this type of stuff. The banks have good consumer protection resources. They can find these people better than sometimes local law enforcement. So you got to report it. Don't just let it go to the side.
Good. That's great advice. Well, so we'll put a link to your website on the website that we host the show called elderlawhour.com. And thank you again, Josh, for being here. I think this was great. I really appreciate it. And hopefully you will come back and visit us soon.
Would love to. Thanks a lot, Emily. This was great. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Are you ready to invest in real estate without the headaches? Look no further than investjacksonville.com, your trusted partner in turnkey real estate investments. With over 18 years of experience, our process has been fine-tuned, and now we're opening up our team to other people just like you. At investjacksonville.com, we're selective about who we work with because we believe in delivering the best. Our dedicated acquisition team scours the market to find the finest properties, while our skilled construction and maintenance team ensures every detail is taken care of. From new roofs to granite countertops, HVAC systems to plumbing and electrical, we leave no stone unturned to make sure there's no surprises. We're in this together with our investors for the long haul. With our first-year guarantee, we put our money where our mouth is. We guarantee your rental rate for the first year, giving you time to build reserves and budget for any surprises that may come your way later. We believe in our construction team and our tenant placement team, which is why we offer this unbelievable guarantee. We're committed to your success and peace of mind. We're passionate about making it simple and easy, and a no-brainer for others to get started investing, because we know what real estate can do for people to reach financial freedom. So if you're ready to invest with confidence, contact Invest Jacksonville today at 904-536-3000 or visit our website at investjacksonville.com. Let us show you why there's nobody quite like us. investjacksonville.com, your authentic partner in hassle-free real estate investing. Contact us now.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks. It's been a pleasure to be here today. And if you want to connect with me or learn more about today's show, please head on over and visit us at elderlawhour.com. If you want to connect with me and our firm, you can head on over to emilyhickslaw.com. I look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you for tuning in to the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks. Join us this and every Saturday for the Elder Law Hour with Emily Hicks.